Zaldrizes Buzdaris goes down.
Alright, so this is, first off, what's up everyone? Thank you for watching my content. I know you're probably like, dude, this is like the 30th unedited video you uploaded. Well, YouTube's algorithm is going nuts right now. I'm having to leave videos that I made 3 weeks ago sitting in their... It's on my YouTube channel, just not made public. They're demonetizing every single video I put out, doesn't matter what I say. So if you want content and you want it immediately, please go join my Patreon, because uploads here on YouTube are subject to YouTube's approval. It's frustrating to spend 7.5 hours working on something, upload it. I put, a lot of not just time, energy into it, but a lot of like research that I'm not attributing to the time it took to make the video. It's just extremely frustrating. They're like, oh, you can't make no ad revenue off of this. And I'm like, why? And they're like, profanity in the thumbnail. Or this, it'll say excess use of something, but I've never put any curse word in the title. I've cut back my swearing to like maybe one word per video. And it'll say that, like, it's just not ad friendly. It doesn't make any sense. It's extremely frustrating. It makes me think that my time here on YouTube is limited just because YouTube is changing their platform so much. But with that out of the way, let's talk about Maegor the Cruel real quick. Now, I've done a live stream on Maegor. I've done a few videos on Maegor. So I'm not going to do, like, a rehashing of his entire backstory and stuff. I just actually want to talk about one thing. How he died, right? So please slap a like on this video. Like goal is going to be 420, and then also consider checking out my Patreon. And thank you for watching this on YouTube. I really do appreciate it. Like goal is going to be 420. All right. So jumping into it, it's 4 different ways Maegor likely died. Right. The first one, most practical one, World of Ice and Fire sets it up pretty well. Fire and Blood adds details to it, sets it up pretty well there as well. I don't know how accepted it is amongst the fandom. I briefly mentioned it in my live stream. I ultimately didn't spend that much time talking about his death, which is why I wanted to make this video. So I think he died one of the most likely with suicide. Suicide. Maegor is a very he's a very cruel individual. No, complex. One of the most complex Targaryens. Yes, he's a straight up raging dragon, so to speak, and like the terrible atrocities that he commits against not just the people of King's Landing, but really all of the small folk in Westeros. Like one of the last things he does before he dies is a campaign against the Faith Militant, and he goes out on this campaign and comes back to King's Landing with 2,000 skulls that he claims are Goodfellows and just different members of the Order of the Faith Militant that directly opposed him in the beginning of his reign and all throughout, right? He claims that all 2,000 of those heads that he brings back, now remember, this is 2,000 people that he's killed in Westeros on this campaign, right? He says they're his enemies, but they're most likely small folks. Book makes a pretty good point to let you know that, yeah, it probably was small folk, because there probably weren't that many Faith Militants still around when he was doing this campaign. Maegor literally went through Westeros and just killed people to say that he doesn't want to be messed with if you're opposing him. 2,000 people is a lot of people. Mind you, this is a fantasy book. 2,000 people didn't actually die. Maegor the Cruel never existed, and neither did dragons. But if you want to compare him to somebody who's done something terrible and then went out on their own kind of thing, kind of Hitler. Hitler, didn't he kill himself in his bunker? Because I don't know why. I mean, let me back up. I know why. Terrible asshole, murdered millions of people, right? But if you want to relate that to Maegor, which is kind of what I'm doing, I think it's set up pretty well. You got to realize that in A Song of Ice and Fire, Maegor had all of his enemies surrounding him. Jaehaerys was coming up from the south with the Baratheons and his dragons, Jaehaerys' dragons. Vermithor, Bronze Fury, was the third largest dragon underneath Vhagar, his mother's dragon, Maegor's mother's dragon, Vhagar. Vhagar's first rider that counted was Aegon's sister wife, Visenya, who is Maegor's mother, right? So Maegor is in King's Landing with Balerion the Black Dread. He calls his banners, but the only people that show up are the people that are loyal to the Crown Lands. So they're small petty lords, and they cannot rival very many members of an army. So Maegor the Cruel is screwed. Maegor the Screwed. Maegor the Screw. He's going to die brutally. And he knows it because he just dealt that kind of death out to all of the small folk. He killed his nephew Aegon the Uncrowned, right? He usurped his brother Aenys' throne. He was exiled. He married multiple women. He lived a large life. He seems like, in my opinion, if I'm just going to profile his character real quick, that would want to go out on his own accord. I think Maegor took some sleeping wine, bent a couple of pieces of the Iron Throne outward, and just sat down. Do you see this image right here? That's why it's been sitting there. Maegor killed himself. Yeah. Both of these artworks are officially commissioned by a Song of Ice and Fire artist. The one on this side right here, this is from World of Ice and Fire. And the other one is from an artist named Mock. But they're officially commissioned a Song of Ice and Fire artwork. I'm going to put the artist's name down below in the description. I just can't remember who did it. They're some of my favorite depictions. But do y'all agree with me? I mean, in my opinion, that's the strongest case. Maegor is the type of person that would do that. He wants to go out on his own accord. Like, the amount of things that he did, the amount of heinous acts that he committed, he knows that he would have had a terrible death. That fear drove him to just kill himself. Because upon his death, he's found the morning that he's about to lose everything, and he's already kind of lost everything. He's just found with pieces of the Iron Throne pushed through his neck and his wrists. And yeah, there's rumors that one of his wives killed him. Potentially. But that kind of tarnishes her ability, or her surviving, right? And the other one, Rhaella Targaryen, she was gone before he was actually dead. That's part of the reason that made him want to be like, okay, well, literally I have no other choice. Because Rhaella escaped in the middle of the night with black fire and went to go be by her brother Jaehaerys' side. It's, in my opinion, it's pretty obvious. I feel like George put the writing on the wall in Fire and Blood, Part 1, in World of Ice and Fire, when Maegor is mentioned and referenced in the main series. One of the other ways, however, that I think potentially he could have died is the Faith Militant themselves, or the small folk themselves, right? The Faith Militant, I do that. You got to realize that a lot of the poor fellows are small folk. So Maegor might have said that, or I'm sorry, people might have thought that they were actually small folk that Maegor killed. Well, they could have been small folk and Faith Militant and poor fellows as well. They could have just turned the new leaf, so to speak, and decided it wasn't worth, after Maegor beat them in that badass trial by 7 in this the Hill of Remembrance. So, which they started to fortify in his own city. That's one of the reasons Maegor actually stole that idea from them, is the Faith Militant started to turn the Sept of Remembrance on the Hill of Rhaenys into a citadel, and ultimately Aenys, his brother King Aenys, was king at the time. So Maegor's brother, Aegon the Conqueror's firstborn son, Aenys, was king at the time. The Faith Militant were acting up in his reign, and that's why Maegor had to deal with them at the start of his reign. They started to fortify the Sept of Remembrance into a citadel. That idea, in my opinion, stuck in Maegor's head, and this is why he made Maegor's Holdfast, which is a castle inside Red Keep, which is a castle itself. So it's a castle inside of a castle. So if Red Keep gets taken, there's a whole other castle that has a moat, fully standalone fortress inside of a fortress. Brilliant idea. Kind of what the Faith Militant did, in that King's Landing is a city, and if they had fully fortified the Sept of Remembrance on the Hill of Rhaenys into a citadel, they would have been able to oppose Targaryens in power, because they obviously have a strong point in the heart of the city for their forces to rally to and fight from and defend, right? So the second option, aside from suicide, would be somebody in the Faith Militant, somebody in the small folk. This dude just went through and killed 2,000 individuals. After he built the Red Keep, and he built all these tunnels inside Aegon's Hill and all this other shit, he killed all of the people after like several days of feasting. He killed all of the builders. So what he tries to build on the on top of Rhaenys' Hill, right? That was formerly the Scepter Remembrance, but he burned it down to a ground. He cleared the ashes away of all the Faith Militant that died there, and built the Dragon Pit. He started to build the Dragon Pit. It was so hard for him to find builders for the Dragon Pit because of what he did to the previous builders of the Red Keep, killed them, that he had to go hire builders from Lys and Myr. And then he used slave labor, so he used prisoners to build it, because every builder that would start working on it, on the Dragon Pit, that's why it took him so long to get it completed, was they would just jet off. They'd be like, well, I did some work, but I'm going to get the hell out of here before Maegor becomes his namesake and kills us. But if they were smart, they would realize that there's not really that many secrets. The Dragon Pit was built as a place that was supposed to be big enough to keep Balerion the Black Dread and Vhagar and all the other dragons that would eventually pop up in the Targaryen family. Which brings to question, how fucking big is Vhagar? Because Vhagar is too big for the Dragon Pit. But the Dragon Pit at one point was big enough to house Balerion. And Balerion is the biggest dragon of all time. So how fucking big is Vhagar in House of the Dragon? Vhagar is huge. Vhagar is the largest dragon that ever lived. Like, we don't know how big Balerion was when he died, but I can tell you. Well, yeah, actually, yeah. We'll see. We'll see. It's just interesting. Let me not get too. So the Faith Militants, small folk that he just killed 2,000 of, they could have easily snuck into the Red Keep, because remember, the tunnels exist. And everybody outside of Maegor's reign knows about those damn tunnels. So he clearly didn't kill all of the builders, right? Some people snuck out. So it's possible that someone from the Faith Militant came in. Maegor was just resting his eyes on the Iron Throne, like getting ready to go off to war. Maybe he decided, if I'm backtracking on the suicidal thing, but I have to entertain all aspects of what happens. Oh, crap. Hang on. I gotta go grab my son. His nap time's over. So just rounding that point out, could have been either the Faith Militant or a small folk. Combination of the two that snuck in and so kind of held him down. Maybe he was, like I was saying, sitting on the Iron Throne half asleep, and they sort of just held him down and pressed him into it or something. That would be a cruel death for him, because he's asleep, ready to go die in some massive blaze of glory. And then, the Faith Militant had come and put a squash on that. The third, final option, wrapping up this video, would be kinslaying. The curse of kinslaying. Like, there's rumors that, there's not rumors, he killed Aegon the Uncrowned, right? That ultimately could have led to his untimely demise. But also, there's, like, a large history of people being scared of kinslaying in Westeros, regardless of your religion. Like, Rhaenyra is afraid of it. It's what prevents her from going all out against the Greens at the start of the war, right? She's still afraid of it even after they kill her son Lucerys. She's still kind of afraid of kinslaying. She doesn't want to be a kinslayer. Then also you have, in the main storyline, Victarion Greyjoy. He's a savage. He's literally sacrificing innocent people and throwing them in the water and just letting them drown for no other reason than him, like, trying to appease a deity that he may not 100% have faith in, right? Terrible guy. But you know what he doesn't want to do, even though he's doing all that? Kill his brother. Be the one to directly kill his brother. So even characters like him are afraid of kinslaying. Then you obviously have, Tyrion killing Tywin, and Tyrion's journey ever since then has been quite different than what it started out with. It's been more adventurous, yes, but he's done nothing but suffered since then. You also have the tradition being pretty widely held in the North when Theon Greyjoy kills the Starks, supposedly, right? He doesn't actually kill the Starks. He kills the Miller's boys. The Miller's boys may secretly be his because he used to sleep with the Miller's wife. And mind you, Winterfell's pretty big in the A Song of Ice and Fire series. There's probably tens, if not 15 or 20 Millers around, right? Windmills around the grounds of Winterfell, the town, Wintertown, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the one he was sleeping with, but the fact that he has these haunting dreams of him hooking up with her and like sort of like it wouldn't necessarily guilt him as much if there wasn't a potential that he was the father of those two boys, because it was years beforehand when they had hooked up. So it's possible Theon was a whore around Winterfell. He was always hooking up with women. It's possible that he killed his own children. And then after that, he gets his fingers slayed. He gets his teeth removed. He becomes this shell of who he was. He develops all types of psychoses. And also, that just plays into the long history of kinslaying. So when Maegor killed Aegon the Uncrowned in what's known as the Battle Below the God's Eye, or the Battle Beneath the God's Eye, he immediately cursed himself. And no matter what he did, eventually that curse would catch up and he'd die horrifically because he slayed kin. Personally, out of all of the stuff I just listed, I feel like he committed suicide. He seems like the type of dude, from the profile that we get of him, from the personality that we read about in Fire and Blood mostly, and then also World of Ice and Fire, and then all the other characters that cite history of what he did, he seems like the type of dude that would take that into his own hands. That's my opinion. Let me know yours down below in the comment section. Thank you for watching.